If you're trying to lose body fat, while it's probably not beneficial to do excessive amounts of cardio, doing cardio can actually increase the amount of fat you can lose. And obviously one of the benefits of endurance training is to acutely increase your energy expenditure, and at the end of the day you'll end up burning more energy, which means at the end of the day you'll be more likely to have lost body fat. But there are also long-term adaptations to endurance exercise that increase your ability to use body fat for fuel. So let's say when you start doing cardio, you're going at a 15-minute per mile pace. And for every 100 calories that you burn, 50 of these calories are coming from glucose and 50 of these calories are coming from body fat. Well, as you begin to adapt to this, you will increase the amount of calories coming from fat and decrease the amount of calories coming from glucose. So as you adapt, for every 100 calories you burn, maybe you're burning 80 of these calories from body fat. And now the first benefit of this is obvious because we're going to be using more body fat for energy. But the other benefit is that we're actually going to be using less glucose. And not only does this benefit our fat loss, but it can actually aid in retaining muscle mass. One of the biggest reasons people lose muscle mass when they're trying to lose fat is because they don't have enough stored glycogen. So in most people, the brain will actually use between 120 and 150 grams of glucose every single day. And the reason I say most people is because if you're in a state of ketosis, the brain can actually get about 75% of its energy from ketones, which means your glucose requirement would drop down to between 30 and 50 grams a day. However, if you're not in ketosis, your brain is going to rely on glucose as fuel. And there are some other cells that can only use glucose, but the main one is the brain. And we don't need to ingest a single gram of carbohydrates to actually supply the brain with all the glucose it needs. And this is because the body has an elegant ability to actually produce glucose inside of the liver. So typically there's a storage of glycogen, which is just a bunch of glucose molecules tightly packed together. And this will be stored in the liver and will be periodically liberated to keep our blood glucose levels high enough and supply glucose to the brain. But when we run out of this glucose, the glucose in the brain will begin to fall. And the way the brain responds is by causing the production of hormones, specifically cortisol, that can actually go to the muscle tissue and begin breaking down the muscle protein to get as many amino acids for gluconeogenesis as it needs. And the reason this is relevant is because this only occurs when we begin to run low on glucose. And this is the second reason why doing endurance exercise during a fat loss phase is so beneficial. Because since we're using more body fat, we'll spare more glucose for the brain and glucose-dependent tissues, making us less vulnerable to breaking down muscle for energy.